Hey, what's up, everybody? My name's David.
And I am Dylan.
And we're the Wet Rats. And we know we're kind of low in the frame, but we wanted to show off this amazing Halloween thing that we set up here. I mean, you wouldn't want to miss it. Look at how good that looks.
It's pretty good.
And that's why we're uploading this video in 8K resolution. Is 8K a thing?
No. Maybe?
I don't know. No, this is going to be like 1080p. Anyways, we're the Wet Rats. If you're not familiar with us, we do comedy videos, we do video game and movie analysis, as well as some anime, specifically Evangelion. Today, we're talking about Halloween. We're doing a special 13 Days of Halloween, where we watch 13 scary movies, technically 14, and over 13 days, we put up videos discussing them, talking about them, that kind of thing.
Let you know what we think. How scared we were.
We're going to give... We're not going to review the movies. We'll give you a 1 to 10 scale of how scared we were.
How many spooks is it out of?
How many spooks and specters? How many ghosts and goblins? Look forward to that in each video.
4 ghosts out of 5.
4.5 ghosts out of 5 zombies. Today we're talking about Halloween, the John Carpenter classic, not the Rob Zombie remake.
Classic.
Let me get my notes here. So, Halloween was a movie made in 1978, originally. We should say real quick. I didn't say. So again, we're doing 13 movies, 13 nights. We're spoiling the hell out of each of them. Right. The idea is you watch these movies and then you watch these videos. Or you've already seen the movies and you're familiar enough with them that you're going to understand everything we're talking about. If you are not really familiar with the movie or have not watched it recently, this video is a waste of your time. We're just going to spoil a bunch of stuff that won't make any sense to you. So watch the movies and then come join us for this. This is kind of like, you know...
We'll wait.
Yeah, we'll wait. Go ahead and go do that now. And we're back. Thanks, everybody. So, we're talking about the 1978 John Carpenter classic, Halloween. John Carpenter's kind of known as like one of the like masters of horror. And this is the movie that kind of started that off for him. Right? He didn't do any scary movies before this, right? Pretty sure he didn't.
No,
Pretty sure this is the first one. I don't think he'd really done much before this. He did like Assault on Precinct 13.
Right.
Or whatever, but I think that was about his only notable thing.
Hear the name John Carpenter without thinking of John Carter for some reason.
Really?
And it's really
John Carpenter from Mars?
Yeah, John Carpenter from Mars.
So we're going to talk about that movie. We watched it the other night, and we're going to discuss it. I had already seen it before. This was not my first time watching it. Dylan, you had never seen it before.
This is my first rodeo.
So what's your first gut reactions to Halloween?
It's weird watching something that is like referenced in so many things, and then watching it and having the reverse of like, oh, now I get all these jokes even more. Or like, oh, okay, now I get what they're doing. So,
right.
I definitely think, had I watched this at the time, or if I was younger, it would be really, really scary. But being an adult and seeing like a lot more different things now, I recognize like the horror aspect of it, but I don't think I was just like, I didn't lose any sleep over it, basically.
Right. I don't think Halloween is a scary movie to me personally. I could see how it would have effect on people.
Sure.
But I really like it.
I know it's a real. I really, really like the movie, but like you said, I just didn't really think it was that scary.
Right, but I don't know if that's necessarily because we didn't watch it at the time, or again we've seen stuff derived from it, or it could also be that like what we've talked about this a lot, you and me personally, but in horror there are certain things that scare you and certain things that don't.
Exactly.
Some people freak out over zombies and like they can't watch zombie movies. To me, I don't give a shit. Zombies are nothing.
Yep.
Like that's more of an action thing to me. You're just mostly like mowing them down. I don't get scared by zombie stuff. I don't get scared by vampires or werewolves. Some people are terrified of that kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah. And that's always so weird because like I just never consider those stuff horror stuff to me because it just is never...
Right.
While it just never scares me.
Well, it's like the first Alien as well. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, but I don't get scared when I watch it. I never have. I love that movie. It's like my number 2 favorite movie of all time.
I got a little scared.
But, oh really?
I didn't lose any sleep over it, but I was a little scared some scenes.
I've never really been scared by that movie, but I know there are people that like... Yeah. That really gets them. And don't get me wrong, if I saw that thing, I would be fucking terrified. That design is so creepy. But when I watch the movie, it doesn't scare me.
It probably scared me the same way Jaws scared me, because I was terrified of Jaws as a kid.
I was scared
I really liked Jaws,
too,
I was terrified of Jaws as a kid.
Yeah. But to me, like, I could totally see myself getting killed by a shark.
Exactly.
If I went swimming.
Exactly.
An alien's not going to kill me.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I didn't lose any sleep over because I just knew, like, there's not.
But then on the other hand, I mean, Michael Myers could come kill you, like just a serial killer.
Yeah, but the thing I think, like, I think, like, kind of where we're going to it is, like, when there's rules and limitations, it makes it less terrifying.
Yes.
When it's a regular human being that doesn't really have any sort of, like, supernatural until, like, this other spin-off movies or whatever.
Yeah.
Doesn't really have any supernatural type abilities, stuff like that. They have certain limitations. So, I mean, you kind of see, what's the name of the character's name in that movie?
The babysitter.
You just see the babysitter basically kick Michael Myers' ass several times. Like,
yeah.
And she's not a very, like, particularly, like, big girl or anything like that. So
True.
It kind of just, like, I feel like I could kick this guy's ass.
Right.
If I really needed to. If I was really terrified and I did get me.
Yeah.
I feel like I could get away.
I don't know. At the time, were there many... Like, there had been horror movies. It's not like this was the first, like, slasher horror film. But it was kind of the one that kind of, like,
That's what I was going to ask, because I'm not really too familiar with a lot of horror genre, especially early horror. So I wasn't sure if this is this kind of like the first, like, suburban horror slasher, or were there stuff before?
As far as suburban stuff, this is probably one of the first, if not the first.
Right.
There was stuff like, I mean, Psycho is
I was going to say, Psycho's a slasher, but it's not really suburban. It's like a middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and that's kind of done in a different style.
Right.
And then before this, Texas Chainsaw Massacre had come out.
Right, okay.
But that's also not suburban. That's,
because I didn't know time frame on that.
Right, in terms of the, like, sit in a neighborhood, this has got to be up there with one of the first.
Which I think what makes it really scary, because, I mean, backwards sure are always scary, but this is, like, in your neighborhood.
Right.
Which I think adds another element to it. Like,
absolutely.
You're not safe anywhere.
I don't know. I really like this movie, but yeah, I agree. It's not that scary. So I guess that's the big complaint against it.
Sure.
But let's talk about things that we did like. I think this movie is directed extremely well.
Yes, it is.
I mean, John Carpenter is great. But, this was still early in his career. He was still kind of proving himself, but I think this movie, like, really shows how promising his future was going to be. Obviously, we know now, in retrospect. But at the time, I'm sure, like, this is one of those directors to look out for.
Yep.
And also, John Carpenter always does the music for his movies.
Yes.
And the music in this is...
really
I mean, it's super iconic. You know, if you may not...
I knew this song before I even saw the movie. Like,
right, yeah. If you hear the music, you're like, oh, right, it's that. It's super iconic. I might play a little bit of the music while we're talking here. But it's great, and it's really edited well to the movie. Hey, sorry, everybody, we had a small technical hiccup. You might not have noticed anything, but it happened. So we were talking about the score for Halloween, which is great. It's super iconic, and we already said all that, but it's just really done well. It flows well with the movie. I really like, and this also isn't the first movie that gave you, like, POV from the killer.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even back to Psycho, that did that. But I really like all of the, like, the way you see it kind of from Michael Myers a lot of the times. It's interesting to me. I thought this rewatching it. Jamie Lee Curtis's character, like, it's definitely kind of centered on her towards the beginning, but really it shows a lot of her friends and stuff, too. Like, it kind of shows them all. It's almost as if, like, for the beginning part of the movie, she's not... totally depicted as the main character.
Right.
Like, going into it, like, oh, it's Jamie Lee Curtis. But if you try to think about it, like, you don't know that, it's almost like, for a lot of the movie, Mike Myers is the main character.
Yeah,
there's so many shots from his perspective,
right, exactly.
And, like, just over-the-shoulder shots are actually POV shots. There's a lot of that, and it's almost like the movie's following him around more than anybody else for a while. And it's interesting because it actually, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think... as soon as Jamie Lee Curtis goes over to the house and sees him and they actually, collide, we don't see any more shots from his perspective, do we? I think after that point in the movie, it's all centered on Jamie Lee Curtis and what is happening to her.
Because, none of the house shots or anything are him looking at anybody else.
Right. And I thought that was interesting, that it's almost like the movie, the direction sort of changes after they actually meet face to face. Which is cool. I think a lot of people might not have picked up on that, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is some shots where it's POV, but I'm pretty sure there wasn't.
I don't think so.
What else do we got to say about this? Obviously, this was a hugely influential horror movie. It's easy to say that now, but again, this wasn't the first slasher film, but this is kind of what really defined what the slasher genre was going to be throughout the 80s. This came out in 78, and I mean, this, if it wasn't for this, we wouldn't have Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street.
I was just going to say, I feel like it really set up the next few iconic, because, those two are just super iconic now, too.
Right, yeah. And yeah, Halloween, paved the way for a lot of that. And it's not, again, not that it's the only one, but you wouldn't have all that other stuff if Halloween hadn't done it this way. And this did establish its own, tropes and cliches, like the whole, virginity thing, all that stuff, which was huge in Friday the 13th especially.
People, you wanting to always shout, look behind you. All the time. That's definitely in this.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's so many times I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, when Jamie Lee Curtis, stabs him, drops the knife, leaves the knife.
Right.
Then he does it again, and she leaves the knife. Like, how do you not learn? Pick up the dang knife.
Yeah.
And then after she stabbed him, he got up. When I told the kids to leave, I would, not let my eyes off him.
Right.
I'd be watching him. Because he got up and you stabbed him in the neck. He's probably gonna get up again.
Yeah.
Don't even risk it. don't even risk it. I want to yell at the TV so bad.
Yeah, that is one of the things in the movie that's like, really? I mean, you're supposed to be the smart one.
Exactly.
That's why you're still alive. You're
Right.
supposed to be like the smart and clever one. But you're not being that smart.
Nope.
So this movie was an independent film when it was released. You know, despite the fact that it's a huge franchise now that we all know about Halloween and all the sequels.
One most successful independent film.
Yeah. So it was made. It was shot in 20 days with a budget of $300,000, which is a lot compared to us. But for a movie, that's pretty low. Even at the time, and it made like $48 million back, which is crazy. This was one of those first horror movies that really showed people like you can film stuff for cheap and then make a shit ton of money, which has become a problem in horror movies.
Right.
Sometimes that works out well, and you have some bright new directors making amazing stuff. Sometimes you have lazy ass people making shitty cheap movies just to make a bunch of money, which is a lot of the problem we're dealing with today.
Yep.
But you can't totally blame stuff like Halloween or other movies with similar budget to.
Yeah, I definitely think you can't blame Halloween because Halloween actually tried. If
Yeah.
anything, it should show, hey, you can make a movie cheap and try.
Right.
And it'll still be good.
Well, that's the difference between a good director and a bad director. A good director says, oh, I only have this much money, I'm just going to have to get really creative and make amazing, inventive stuff.
Sure.
A bad director just goes like, well, I guess we'll just fucking make it to make money.
Yep.
Like, for example, like with this, the Mask, the extremely famous Mask, I'm sure most people know this movie trivia if you're familiar with Halloween, but it's a William Shatner mask that they bought for like $1 at a dollar store and or a Halloween store or whatever, and they just spray painted it white and like fucked with it a little bit. It's a William Shatner mask that they bought for $1. One of the most iconic masks in horror movie history. Like if you see that mask, you're like, oh yeah, you recognize it. Like, and they paid like $1 for that. That just shows you like that's the kind of creative talent that can make something that still is so memorable and like relevant in society, even 40 years later, or I guess 30 years later. That's pretty crazy.
I feel like that's kind of got to be a little bit of. I mean, because I haven't seen it, so maybe I don't know if there's an explanation for it. But kind of became a little bit the same thing with like Jason. I mean, Jason's just a cheap ass hockey mask,
right?
Like,
but when we're gonna watch Friday the 13th later, if you want to see the list of all the movies we're watching, you can look down in the description. We will be watching Friday the 13th later. But actually, I mean, he doesn't even have the mask in the first couple. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Right. Yeah. It's not until I think the third one.
Oh, really?
He might get it in the second, but I haven't seen them all. I haven't seen any of them actually, but I'm pretty sure he gets it in the third. But yeah, that one's interesting because like, yeah, that's the super iconic thing, but he doesn't even have it.
Yeah,
like
that's
so
crazy.
that's weird.
Because that's like so iconic with this character.
One bit of trivia I saw, shouts out imdb.com. Maybe you guys have heard of that. There's a part where Mike Myers' mask gets pulled off.
Yes.
And you see his face for a minute.
I read the trivia. It's a good.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people would talk to John Carpenter and be like, "Man, it really like disturbed me how disfigured and gross you made him look when the mask was pulled off." And John Carpenter was like, "We didn't.
Yeah.
It's a normal face. Like it totally looks normal."
Yeah.
But because people like at the time, especially, were so ready to believe that a monster could be the only thing under that mask. When the mask is pulled off for that brief second, what they saw was what they had projected in their own minds.
Yeah.
And that's interesting.
Because he only had that scar they did for special makeups, but that wasn't that bad. Because I had the same thing too when I saw it. I was like, oh, his face is kind of fucked up. But I guess I didn't think grotesque, but I did definitely think like, oh yeah, his face is kind of fucked up. But when I read this, like, oh yeah, I guess he just had a scar. That's it.
Yeah, that's pretty.
I mean, he was a pretty good-looking guy, except to get a scar.
Right.
I mean, he's a whole like kind of like psycho thing, just like a good-looking guy, just killing people. Okay.
Yep. What else? So there is one thing that people, I guess, criticized a lot. I brought it up when we were watching the movie. Mike Myers has been in prison or mental prison or whatever he's
Austin
been in.
Powers and
for
Shrek.
Yeah, he's been in Shrek. He's been in I Married an Axe Murderer.
That's a good one.
He's been in The Love Guru. Is that him?
Guru.
All right, cool. Shouts out Mike Myers. His first role in Halloween. He's been in this prison or whatever for like 15 years, but he knows how to drive.
Yes.
And I'm okay with that purely because they actually bring it up in the movie, which is called lampshade hanging, where you actually bring up a ridiculous plot thing. The characters themselves actually bring it up and acknowledge this is kind of weird and dumb, and we don't have an explanation for it. Let's just move on.
Yeah.
And I like when writers do that. To me, if you don't address something, that's kind of unexcusable. But if you bring it up and you're like, hey, how can he drive? Well, he looks like he was driving pretty well to me. All right, fine. Like, that's fine. I don't need a whole explanation. But a lot of people were bothered by that.
Which I think is kind of I mean, I guess being a person who's been driving for like so many years now, I guess it doesn't seem that ridiculous because I think when you're an adult, and he obviously seems like we can't even talk about this, a very intelligent, ridiculous person, you could probably figure out how to drive pretty quickly, pretty easily.
Right. I mean, he seems patient and methodical. Like, he doesn't immediately break out and just start, like, just, like, chopping people left and right. He waits, and he watches, and he gets that perfect moment, and he picks people off one by one. It's not really until the end when he gets, attacked by Jamie Lee Curtis that he gets a little more rage mode and starts going after people.
I mean, because it's not like we sit there and see him in traffic and he's obeying all the traffic laws. Like, how does he know these traffic laws?
Right.
Like, we just see him kind of, like, speeding off every now and then. So it's just like, I don't know, I think anybody can figure out the gas pedal and the brake pedal.
Right.
So I feel like if that was, like, a big complaint, it's like, that's not... Out of far-fetched things you can do, I think the more ones would be he got shot and stabbed several times and still alive. Not that he could drive.
Right, yeah. And, there's also all kinds of explanations you could come up with yourself. To me, this is something that people consider a plot hole, but it's not a plot hole. A plot hole is something where, like, it straight up doesn't add up. Yeah. It's not a plot hole if you in your own mind can create a possible solution. Like, for example, just to derail really quick, in The Dark Knight Rises, there's a scene when Christian Bale's, like, halfway across the country, and somehow he's just back in Gotham.
Right.
And people are like, what a big plot hole. To me, that's not a plot hole because we don't know how much time has passed. Yep. We know that he's already traveled the world. We saw that in the first Batman Begins. He knows how to get around. I'm sure at some point, with as smart as he is, even though he's low on money in that
and how connected he is, too.
Yeah, and how connected he is, I'm sure he found a way to get back.
Yeah.
To me, that's not a plot hole. A plot hole is when, something is... really doesn't add up. Like, there's no way it could have happened. It's completely... It'd be like, if literally the same day we saw him, it was like, this is 2 hours later, he's in Gotham. It'd be like, that's a plot hole. But to say, no amount of time has passed, who knows? It could have been a couple months.
And like they say in the movie, too, back onto Halloween, someone said maybe someone taught him how to drive there. That almost is like, sure, that could totally have happened.
I mean, there's a lot of things you could come up with. So, to me, I always have an issue when people are like, this movie had so many plot holes, when they don't really mean plot holes. They just mean things that it didn't totally explain and, just hand feed you or spoon feed you. Like, that's not a plot hole. Although, I did see some trivia, in one of the movies, they give, like, some dumb explanation for it. So, in one of the sequels. I don't know what that explanation is. I'm sure it's really dumb.
I really don't know this. He was a driving prodigy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was.
He used to race in prison.
So
it's a connection to the death race.
I guess one of the questions I had too, because I didn't read much about it, because it's something I was hoping maybe we could discuss.
Mm-hmm.
Does it ever really go into why he killed his sister? Why? Because the thing, because it almost seems like it was accidental in a way, according to some of the female cast in there. But it doesn't seem like a thing is like the typical trope: once you have sex in the movie, you die.
I mean, I think he was just an evil little.
That's
kid.
what I was wondering. So but it did definitely, he just was watching his sister, then she had sex, and he died. Did he have some sort of, so he just was evil, he didn't have anything of vendetta against his sister? Or
I mean, I'm sure you could read into it deeper, something about how, she was supposed to be babysitting him, and instead she was go fucking play with your Legos, and he was
which is, I guess, because if he's following babysitters, that kind of...
Right, exactly. That's kind of how I always felt about it, is just he's just kind of upset because she kind of neglected him, instead of being, a, good caring sister, she was, fucking some guy, and he's like... well, fuck you. And, but also, they do mention in the movie, he's just kind of meant to be evil personified.
Right, yeah. Because, the whole babysitter thing, too, it totally makes sense when he killed the other two girls. But not really for Jamie Lee Curtis, because she was a very attentive babysitter. So it almost been
yeah, but, he's also, crazy.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I think the evil, crazy thing is just, that's...
he is, really patient and methodical or whatever. Sorry, we got cut off again. But I think that, he also... he probably doesn't know how long he's going to be out before he gets caught, so he just wants to kill some people.
Yeah.
Even though he's still kind of taking it slow, it is still on the same day. He's he's not going to be too picky on his targets.
Yeah.
He's back in the hometown. There's a babysitter. Close enough.
So when he follows that kid, I almost got the thing is kind of him trying to sympathize with the kid, or kind of he's oh, I kind of really feel with this kid. But I guess they didn't really do anything else after that. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, I think it's just meant to be one of those early shots where you're not really sure
what's going on.
What to think about. Anything else to talk about with Halloween?
No.
There's not a lot to discuss with this one. There's not a bunch of twists in this one, like most horror movies. There's not anything crazy, but that's because this was one of the original ones that kind of shaped the mold for what would become.
Sure, I don't think it really needed it either. I think it was
right.
when I was just
yeah. So yeah. Halloween, just to reiterate, not that scary anymore.
Not really.
But great movie. Great movie to watch on Halloween.
Holds up the quality of movie, but...
Right, absolutely. And I mean, that helps too because, like, you know, because it's not a ghost or a skeleton, you don't have any, like, shots where it's like, oh, the effect on that is rough.
Should we have, like, a scare meter for, like, all the movies we do then? And then, like...
Which one's the scariest?
Yeah.
I mean, I already know which one's going to be the scariest, probably for both of us, so...
It's,
Creepshow.
Creepshow.
We're going to be real scared when we watch Creepshow.
On the scare meter, this is, not so scary.
Well, what's the ranking like?
It'll be like one of those things that have like the dial. You know, like,
I'm not gonna.
Yeah, he's gonna edit that in there.
I'm not gonna edit that in there. I didn't even want to give scores because I don't really like review scores.
I was thinking I don't want to give scores. I was making a joke.
Yeah, I think review scores are like done. Let's get rid of them. Instead, we'll just say, for some reason you've been watching this and you haven't watched Halloween. First of all, what the fuck? Second of all, go watch Halloween. It's a good movie.
Do it.
And that's a wrap for Halloween. Join us tomorrow where we'll be discussing Scream, a movie very influenced by Halloween.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
See you then. Also, if you want to email us, you can email us at thewhiterats@gmail.com. Feel free to comment. We'd like to discuss, you know, this is meant to be sort of an open discussion thing for other lovers of horror movies. So if you agreed with our opinions, if you didn't, if you just want to chat, do that in the comments, or email us, or whatever, and, you know, we'll talk to you there. And check out our list of the other movies we're going to be watching. Start watching them yourself, and get ready to get scared. Goodbye.